practitioner to be really effective utilizing NLP, one of the things that they need to be able to do is to go beyond their own ego base. In other words, they have to literally have some capacities to experientially move out of their own map. So not only they can connect with the map of another, they can begin to understand that. So in terms of logical levels, you look at the logical levels, and the upper level, the fifth level is identity. The question then is, what is beyond that? People have this absolute certainty that they're more than just their personal history, their own belief structure. The question of what that is becomes a very relevant question, I think, to master practitioners. The organization of the system after or during a master practitioner training liberates, what I think it does is it liberates attention. You do the remedial work, you clean up your past history, you work on your issues, and in the process, that liberates a certain kind of life force, a certain kind of energy that you can then redirect. So the way I think about it is that wisdom is knowing where to put your attention. And if it's only on the ego, only on the personality, there's a limitation in that, because you are obviously part of something greater than that. It's been described in NLP in a lot of different ways, that it's the system that is bigger than you, the thing that you recognize that yourself as being a part of. Sometimes it's expressed as energy, right? A lot of sort of vague references to what is beyond ego. This is obviously something that philosophers and poets have been exploring for thousands of years, so it's not a new question. In my own life, the study of native people or indigenous people has led me to an investigation of a kind of structure of cultures that are still articulated with nature, so they feel a living, dynamic connection to the territory. In NLP, we make a real distinction between the map and the territory. And we often say that we really don't respond to the territory, we respond to our map. And in technological societies, I think this is pretty true. But in a lot of indigenous peoples, not so true, because they're so articulated with the natural world, with the territory, that it's a participatory dance, their lives, of engagement. The vehicle for this engagement is what goes by many different names, by chi, by prana, by energy. And one of the things that I'm exploring is the premise, the possibility, that we have an additional sense beyond the five senses of visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, acoustic. That we have the ability to experience energy, sense energy, that everything has a certain kind of energy that you can connect to. This energy has structure, it has pattern, and it's intelligent. And the filters, or the sort of pattern detection skills of NLP, enable you to begin to engage in a perception and a participation with that world. So for the last 10 years or so, I've been working, developing workshops based on my experience with native people that integrate energy with NLP. And I find that it's the kind of thing that anybody can understand it, because it's part of our human heritage. I mean, there's an NLP presupposition that if it's possible in the world, it's possible for any of us. So if it's possible in the world for people to literally experience the energy of the natural world and utilize it, it's possible for all of us. It's just that those with NLP skills have much greater flexibility. They understand they can change their map. They understand this distinction between what they're perceiving and what they're making a conception of. And they understand that the conception is a process that they create, and there is, in fact, something there that they're participating with. So they're much more capable of kind of opening to these other cultural views. The other value, I think, for master practitioners, regardless of the culture they come from in the study of energy or these native cultures, is that if you can begin to understand your own culture through the filter or through the experiential base of another culture, it begins to illuminate your culture in a way that you can't from inside the culture. So I think there's a tremendous benefit to a good NLP practitioner to in some way explore the intrinsic nature of other cultures so completely that they can kind of identify with it and then re-examine their own culture. This reveals deep cultural maps that are very difficult to identify without that process. And people do tend then to still stay isolated in cultural and linguistic biases. But when you can see it from the outside, by virtue of looking through the eyes of another culture, suddenly, you're much less imprisoned by your own culture, and there's a greater sense of liberation. So really at the master practitioner level, particularly towards the end of the master practitioner, the sense really is, for me, a kind of, at least as I intend to teach it, is that it's about a certain kind of liberation. But it's a liberation of attention, it's a liberation of intelligence, it's learning how to direct your awareness in ways that transcend just the confines of the ego or the separate self.